Hey everyone, welcome back to Blessings in Surprise. If you are a gardener like me, you know that with summer comes an abundance of zucchini and summer squash. Today I'm going to share with you 4 of my family's favorite zucchini recipes, as well as 2 different preserving methods to keep the excess fresh all year long. So grab a pen and paper and let's get started. Good morning. Thanks for joining me today. As I said in the intro, today is all about zucchini recipes, how to cook it and preserve it. And I have to apologize if you're watching this on the day that I post it. I actually filmed this video months ago, but just life happened and I never actually got it posted in time for it to be relevant for this summer's zucchini harvest. So if you are watching this right after I filmed it, this is probably September for you and you may be done with zucchini for the year. However, the beauty of YouTube is that once I put it up, this will be here for next year's summer summer zucchini haul. So it will be here for all the years to come at an appropriate time. But anyways, hey, there's still zucchini in the stores, so maybe you still want to try these recipes out anyway. I am using my favorite food processor in the world. It has a slicing and shredding disc on the top. I believe this is a Hamilton Beach. I will double check, but I'll definitely post it in the links in the description box so you can find it. But I absolutely love this thing. It makes the quickest work out of slicing or shredding anything. You basically just chop stuff down small enough that it can fit into the little like dispenser thing that you put it in the top, and it instantly, I mean, it's like almost instant. It takes seconds to just shred the entire thing. I'm using this reusable paper towel. I was just showing you. I'll link that too. But watch it how fast this is. Now, obviously, this is sped up, but like, honestly, though, it is so fast to shred up zucchini this way and, you know, shred anything that way. So I'm using that to shred it up. But what we're going to make first are zucchini fritters, which uses shredded zucchini. But for this, I am actually measuring out 2 cups worth of zucchini for each one of these freezer bags, because one of the other recipes I'm going to show you is zucchini bread. And that's something I like to make for Christmas gifts for people. And so I will measure out 2 cups because that's the amount that I need for the recipe to make 1 loaf of zucchini bread. And I will have that pre-portioned in the freezer so I can just grab out exactly what I need and defrost that without having to defrost an entire giant bag of zucchini. So those are going to be just stuck in the freezer as is, and that is one method of preserving your zucchini. You can just shred it and stick it in freezer bags, and I'm telling you, you'd never know that it was frozen when you make the zucchini bread. It comes out so good. So that's what I'm doing here. You'll also see me using some bigger bags that I'm going to freeze, and that is where I am freezing the zucchini for the zucchini fritters recipe, which you're going to see here in a minute. But the bigger bags, my family loves zucchini fritters, so like I have to make massive quantities of them when I do make them because they just devour them. So that's what I am storing the big bags for. And then I'm going to save some off to the side to make some today. Now, I'm not big on exact measurements when I'm cooking. I mostly just eyeball stuff. So I'm going to show you the ingredients and the methods, and you can kind of play around with it. But like I said, we're going to use this shredded zucchini. I use the seasoned breadcrumbs, some white shredded Italian cheese, just any white cheese can work, and then some of our farm fresh eggs. But when you're making the zucchini fritters, the first thing you want to do when you defrost your zucchini is drain all of the liquid out, because you're going to be frying these, so you do not want excess liquid in there. It will splatter like crazy and you won't get the crispy texture you're looking for. So first things first, drain all of that liquid out after you defrost your zucchini if you are using it from the freezer. Now, if you're using it fresh, you're going to want to sprinkle some salt on top of it and let it sit in a colander and let it drain. Let all that excess moisture get out of it that way. But I'm just adding in some eggs, some breadcrumbs. Like I said, I just eyeball this. So basically, you kind of are looking for a texture where it's almost like a burger patty or like meatballs, something like that. You want it to be able to hold together, but not be like super dried out or too wet. So you're basically going for like a meatball texture here. And I noticed I needed more moisture, so I just added a couple more eggs. And like I said, that's how I cook. You know, I look for the texture, I eyeball things. I don't have exact measurements here. And when you're working with zucchini, you know, every zucchini is a different size. So I can't tell you to use one zucchini or, you know, like you just use the zucchini that you have, and however big it is, add that many breadcrumbs and eggs to make it the right texture. So that's all I can tell you. So then I'm just adding some cheese and mixing that all together. And when I get the right texture, I'm just going to use a meatball scooper to scoop it into a pan of hot oil. When you put oil in the pan, yeah, see, I got my texture there where it sticks to the spoon, it's holding together, so that's perfect. That's what I want. And you're going to see me pour some oil in a pan, and don't give me any flack about using canola oil. I'm not having that conversation right now. I know it's not the healthiest oil in the world. It's what I had on hand, and that's what I'm using, so get over it. Okay, anyways, you just want enough oil in the bottom of the pan to cover the whole bottom. So I'm not actually deep frying these. I am just, you know, just putting enough on the bottom so they don't stick. And I'm going to fry them on one side. I'm going to keep a lid on it to help it cook through in the middle because there are eggs in there. And then I'm going to flip it over onto the other side after it's cooked on the first side. But this takes a lot of patience. I mean, you have to like wait until the bottom is crispy before you flip it. Otherwise, it's going to fall apart if you try to flip it early. So you really want to wait until the bottom has a nice crisp on it before you flip it over. Oh, and important side note. Okay, so when you have a lid on this, when you pick up the lid, there's going to be condensation on it. You need to remove it from the pan very quickly before that the water drips down into the pan, because like I said, when that water hits the oil, it's going to splatter and it will get you. I may or may not know this from experience, so make sure you don't drip any of that water into the pan when you're taking the lid off. But here is the finished product, and I'll show you in a second here. And my family likes to eat these with like marinara sauce. They like to top them with shredded cheese and dip it in marinara sauce, and that's how they eat them. But they are super crispy. Oh, and sprinkle a little kosher salt on there right when you take it off the hot oil. But super crispy and cheesy and just a really nice savory, salty flavor. So anyways, my family loves these. This is one of our staples of how we use up our zucchini. So the next recipe is my family's other favorite recipe, which is zucchini bread. Now, my family goes crazy for anything cinnamon flavored. They just love cinnamon. So this zucchini bread recipe is actually something I just found on Pinterest, and I can link the actual recipe for you in the description box. This one does have measurements, so I will link it for you. But they love this zucchini bread, and it's really sweet. It's really cinnamony. You don't even notice that there's zucchini in it. It just tastes like a dessert bread, but it's super good. And I will just let you watch me make it and play you some music.
Take me home, take me on a ride. I got a good feeling about the colors lighting up your eyes. Take me home, take me to the sky. I got a good feeling. Tell me the only thing you are is mine now. Na, 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 na. I got a good feeling. Na, 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 na. I got a good feeling. Good feeling. You wanna know is how to hold on to it every moment. Dive into it like my love is an ocean. It's overflowing. I swear it's golden. So good that I'm rolling. Baby, you make me crazy. I'm seeing roses. Baby, just maybe you save me. Oh.
So one note about this recipe, For this recipe, you do want to keep the moisture in with the zucchini. You're gonna need that extra water when you see, you'll see when I start stirring this, it's like super, super thick and dry. So I'm using zucchini that I had frozen in the freezer from last year. And you want to just keep all of that excess water in there. I defrosted it before I'm using it, obviously, but you want to keep all the water in there. If you're using fresh, it will have the water in there already, so you don't have to worry about adding any. But this is the opposite of the fried zucchini, where you definitely want to keep all of that water and use it for the recipe. So I'm gonna stick this in the oven, and I'm actually putting it onto a cookie sheet just because it looked really full. I didn't remember it looking that full the last time I made it, but it did not overflow. So I put it there just in case, but it actually didn't. And this is what it looks like when it comes out. Now this, like I said, it's a really sweet cinnamony bread. It's moist, it's delicious, and my family just likes to eat it with like some butter on it, warm it up, and it is wonderful. But it also makes a lot of little mini loaves. I think I get like 5 or 6 mini loaves out of the large loaf portion of bread. So if you want to do mini loaves, you'll get about 5 mini loaves you can count on from one recipe. So here it is, nice and moist and delicious, and that did not last long in my house. Okay, so now we're gonna work with some fresh zucchini, and I have a plastic bag on the counter where I'm scooping all the seeds. That's actually for the chickens. We give all those seeds to the chickens because they love that stuff. So that's why I am saving it all in a bag for them. But I'm gonna cut these up, and I'm making 2 separate dishes from this zucchini because I have different dietary restrictions than the rest of my family. I have autoimmune disorders, and I can't eat the same foods as them. So I'm making one for everybody else. I'm making one for me. I use pink Himalayan salt on mine. I think for them I just use like kosher salt or something. It doesn't really matter, but throwing on some salt, black pepper. For the rest of the family, I'm gonna brush on some olive oil, and mine's just gonna be plain. But theirs is going to get stuffed with, I believe it was pork I put in there. I will, give you an ingredient list in the description box, but we're doing some garlic powder, onion powder, and I'm setting that to the side while I mix up the pork mixture. Now, again, with the seasoned breadcrumbs, I am married to an Italian man, so the seasoned breadcrumbs are a must. That is just how we roll. I'm using some of my homemade spaghetti sauce and the breadcrumbs, and then I'm going to add in some cheese, again, just Italian cheese, and mix that all together. And once again, this is also like the consistency of a meatball is what you're looking for here. So again, I'm not using exact measurements. I am just looking for a texture here. So I'm going to add a little bit more sauce because I wanted it to stick together a little bit better. You could throw eggs in there. I didn't feel the need to because I was using sauce, but you can if that's what you want to do. And once I got that texture, that is what I'm going to stuff the zucchini with. And I ended up having some leftover meat, so I ended up just making meatballs out of it afterwards. But I'm stuffing the zucchini, and I am going to sprinkle it with some cheese on top and bake it in the oven. Now for this, I'm using a meat thermometer because I want to make sure that that pork cooks through all the way. And I'll show you my meat thermometer. I'll link it for you, but I love this thing. It's so easy to use because if you set it to like use the memory function here, it has a picture of all these different animals on the bottom. So you just pick which animal you're cooking and hit set, and it tells you exactly what temperature it needs to be for it to be safe to eat, and it will beep whenever it reaches that temperature. So it makes it really easy not to overcook or undercook your meat, and it's magnetic, so it sticks to the stove whenever you stick it in. So that's really convenient. So I love using that thing. It gives me the confidence to be able to cook meat for my family and know that I'm not going to poison them or dry it out to the point where it's inedible. So I use that all the time when I'm cooking meat. So anyways, I'm just rolling up some meatballs with the extra meat, and these are going in the freezer, and I'll have those for another meal. So one thing I like to do with anything that's going into the fridge or freezer is I like to use a dry erase marker, write down what it is and the date that I'm putting it in there. And that way you don't end up with the problem of like, oh, when did I make this? How old was this? Is this still good? You know, and or if you leave it in there way too long, you might have the question of what was this before it turned into green fuzz, you know? But I always do that with stuff when I'm sticking it in the freezer or fridge. It's a really handy trick. But this is the delicious finished product. And because I used that meat thermometer, the pork is perfectly tender and juicy and delightful, especially mixed with the sauce and the cheese. And my husband devoured this. Now, my kids will eat zucchini if it's zucchini bread or if it has been deep fried and covered with breadcrumbs and cheese, as I made the zucchini fritters, but they actually won't eat it like this. Like, they'll eat the stuffing out of the middle, but they don't like the zucchini when they can tell that it's a vegetable. Now, do your kids do that too? Is that just me? I don't know. But you have to disguise it as something else if you want them to eat it. But for my version, I am using some ground pork and some goat cheese, and just, I don't have any like sauce or anything going on it. I think I'm just doing it this way, but it still came out really good because I just like zucchini in general. So I enjoy the flavor of the actual vegetable, which is much more recognizable when it's not covered in sauce, cheese, and breadcrumbs, but this did come out pretty good too. Now, because I was using pork that was already pre-cooked, I didn't need to use the meat thermometer, so I basically just stuck mine in there long enough to melt the cheese and warm up the zucchini, and then that was all I needed to do. So another way that I like to enjoy zucchini is by steaming it. And this is actually a Tupperware steamer. I know you can steam it in a pot on the stove, but I'm doing it the lazy way and I'm doing it in the microwave. I love microwave steamers. They are so easy and fast and just save so much time. And I feel like it's easier to wash those dishes than to wash like the big pots and pans and stuff. I mean, maybe it's not, but it feels like it is to me, so it helps. But anyways, I'm just going to dice this up into cubes and throw it in the steamer. And I want to say I microwaved it for like maybe 5 minutes or something. 4 or 5 minutes is all you need. And I'll link that bench scraper for you too, because that is a game changer. I love that bench scraper. But anyways, yeah, this is a super easy, super quick recipe. Really just dicing it, throwing a little salt on it, and microwaving it for like 4 or 5 minutes, and it's done. So that's just easy steamed zucchini. Okay, so this is the second preserving method that I'm using to show you. I am going to freeze dry some sliced yellow squash, and I plan on using this for like making lasagnas or things like that. It's going to be sliced really thin when I'm using my food processor. You can slice it by hand if you want it to be thicker, or use a mandolin or something like that. But I was just in a hurry. I already had the food processor out. This seemed easier and faster to me. And so I did it this way, and I'll show you the thickness here. It does come out pretty thin in the food processor, but that actually is nice because it dries out faster in the deep freezer, or not deep freezer, the freeze dryer that way. And it's nice if you're using it in lasagna or something, it's not like this huge chunk, it's like nice thin layers. You can layer it in with your noodles and sauce and whatever. But anyways, I'm just lining this up on the trays and trying to keep everything in a single layer if I can. And then I'm going to throw it into the freeze dryer. I have to say, I have really been loving having this freeze dryer. I know they're really expensive. Ours was actually a gift from a very generous family member. Got me this gift, I think, for Christmas last year, or maybe my birthday. I can't remember. But it is just such an easy, hands-off way to preserve food. And this is after it came out of the freeze dryer. I'm just packaging it up. But it has been so nice because, especially for like my herbs and stuff, I've been able to make all my own like homemade tea leaves and things like that. Just preserving things from the garden in a way that doesn't take a whole lot of my hands-on time, and it'll stay fresh for a really, really long time. Now, I'm making the mistake of packaging this all up into wide mouth mason jars and don't realize until I get to this point that I don't have a mason jar vacuum sealer with a wide mouth lid. My lid is for regular mouth jars, and when I go to vacuum seal it, I realize, oh, these are in the wrong jars. I can't fit this on there. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so upset. So I had to had to go back and switch it all into regular mouth jars, and still have a wide mouth jar sealer on my Amazon wish list. I think one of these days I'll actually get one, but yeah, I had to switch it back over. But anyways, I just use my vacuum sealer to suck the air out, and I throw an oxygen absorber or a moisture absorber in there with it and just label it. Now this will stay good in a jar for like years and years on the shelf, but hopefully I'll be using it within the next year or so. And so I'm just going to stick it on my canning shelves with the other canned goods back in the shadowy part of the shelf so it's not exposed to a lot of light. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today and for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing and liking this video, sharing it with your friends. And hopefully I will have some more content out for you very soon. I know I've already filmed a bunch of stuff that I just haven't had time to edit yet. So hopefully we'll get that out to you soon. And we're looking forward to having an amazing fall and all kinds of good stuff coming your way. See you next time. Bye-bye.